Meeting to order for the Oxnard City Council Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting for March 26th. Madam Clerk, do you have anything you'd like to read?
Member Valenzuela.
Present.
Member Zaragoza.
Present.
Chair Perrello.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on March 19th, 2024.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have the flag salute. I'll lead the flag salute. We'll take a moment of silence with the tragedy that happened today and the events, and realizing, at least from the limited news reports, these people were most likely employees of a public works entity, patching potholes on the street. I don't know the whole facts, but that's what's in the news. And you never know what's going to happen. You never know about your next minute. So just have a moment of silence for them and their families, please. Put your hand in your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is a consent to the City Clerk's Department. The subject to the approval of the minutes, the recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee approve the minutes for the March 12th, 2024 regular meeting as presented.
No public comments.
Are there any public comments on this matter? And I apologize.
Not on the agenda. It's okay.
Chair Perrello, we do not have any speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I bypassed step 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. That's my fault. Are there any? No. We have comments, but we have comments for specific items. Are there any comments for items not on the agenda?
Chair Perrello, we do not have any speakers for items not on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize to my committee members, the staff, and the public. Okay. Going back to C. And we've already asked, we have no public comments on item C for the Clerk's Department and approval of the minutes. Do we have any recommendations for changes by the committee members?
None.
Do we have a recommendation?
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The next item, D, D1 under reports, Public Works Department. Subject, agreement 324-00338 with Cameron D. Duncan, doing business as Duncan Engineering for on-call marine engineering services for Public Works. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize. There are two steps to this. Step 1, the mayor to execute an on-call agreement with Duncan Engineering for a maximum 5-year term of the agreement, with the initial agreement term ending March 31st, 2025, after which the agreement may be extended for 4 additional 1-year terms with a fully extended final term ending March 31st, 2029, for an amount not to exceed $500,000 for marine engineering services. And part 2 of the agreement, a budget appropriation transfer in the amount of $100,000 from fiscal year 2023 General Fund Public Works Engineering Division to the Mandalay Bay Seawalls Capital Improvement Project number C1901. There is a presentation, video presentation, but due to Measure M, there is no presentation at the meeting. Are there any public comments on this item?
Yes, Chair Perrello, we have one virtual speaker.
Okay,
One moment.
thank you very much.
Public speaker with phone number ending in 2382. Please unmute by pressing *6. Go ahead, sir. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, thanks for taking the call, and thank you very much for having this come before the committee. My name is Debbie Mitchell. I'm a resident in Mandalay and vice president of the Channel Islands Waterfront Homeowners Association. I did send in a timeline of events to understand the background of this item. That actually goes back years, and to thank you for considering this, and with my sincere hope that you will pass this recommendation on and approve this item, as this is one of the very first really critical steps in our assessment area, coming to an understanding of the foundation necessary to create a bond that will meet the 50-50 agreement between our district and the city of Oxnard. The engineering process that Duncan Engineering goes through will catch us up in the monitoring that has not been done during the interim when they have not been under contract, and will help us study the outcome of the Hemlock project, which got delayed for 6 years after being fully approved in 2018. I'd really like to thank the city staff, the city manager, and Public Works for moving on this and moving forward on it, and hope that you will approve this item. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to call in and share your information and the information that you've shared in the past. Are there any other comments on this matter?
We do not have any additional speakers. Thank you, Chair Perrello.
Okay, do the committee members have any questions?
Yep. Mr. Chair, the question I have is, Duncan Marine Engineering is on a call-in basis. And specifically, what are they going to do on the call-in basis when we have something wrong with the seawall or you're Mr. May, right?
I'm Morgan Kessler,
Okay, I'm sorry.
city engineer.
Okay, I should know better than that. Because I know there was KJ May that did the report, but, so what are they exactly are they going to do in the call-in basis?
Well, you know, with the call-in contract, it enables us to, you know, when an engineering task comes up, we're able to call them in, so to speak, and have them do, you know, engineering tasks that are smaller than the total amount of the full contract of $500,000. So with that said, with this contract, they'll be doing seawall monitoring and damage assessment. Mm-hmm. They'll also be doing structural assessment of the two types of seawalls that are out there, the Zern and the Boise seawalls. And they'll also, you know, once we have recommendations from them to proceed with, you know, the two types of construction that we're looking at out there, mm-hmm. They'll be doing project management for us as well as public outreach tasks.
Okay, at one time, maybe Michael, somebody says, aren't those seawalls considered streets? At one time, many years ago, they were put under the street, they called them streets, is that correct, Michael?
Afternoon, Chair, committee members, Michael Wolf, Director of Public Works. I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, that the walls are considered streets. I know that the right-of-way, which is the seaways, could fall under the Streets and Highway Code section, but the walls themselves, I don't believe, are specifically identified as streets. Okay. I know many years ago they were put under the street department because of the waterways, you know. So. Yeah, that predates me, Mr. Mayor, but we certainly can do some research and find that out. But I think your question is whether or not the walls themselves. I know Council has a resolution a couple of years back where they've identified funding sources in terms of sharing the funding source for those walls, but I don't think there's been a designation of them as a street.
Well, you know, those are questions that you know. Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add to what Mr. Kessler was mentioning, that this is an on-call contract. So as Ms. Mitchell mentioned on her comments, This is, we have monitoring that goes on, and have had monitoring going on for a long time at the walls and, for the seawalls, and it stopped for a while. So this will allow us to continue that process. As you mentioned, KJ May, who's in the audience here, gave the presentation. He is also working on our seawalls project. The current project is the Hemlock project, where we're going to be doing a couple of pilot tests in terms of remediation. So this is also the same engineer that's doing that work as well.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Thank you very much for the presentation. Mr. Kessler, this is partially a diving contract for work underwater?
Correct.
And with the work underwater, are any of these divers going to be having to use atmospheres, separate atmospheres, or will they be subject to potentially getting bends or anything like that, extra high-risk stuff?
Yeah, I see Project Manager KJ May is here. I think he could answer that question probably more accurately than me.
Please, thank you very much.
My apologies, Chair. What was the question again? Could you repeat that?
Part of this work is going to be diving underwater, where you'll need to be able to have breathing. Are there anything where we're going to have artificial atmospheres in the tanks that the guys will be breathing? Will they be going down to depths where there's a concern of the bends or anything like that?
Not that we're aware of, but yeah, definitely the diving will be involved, and we'll make sure the dive team will have all the certification required per the the state laws and whatnot in order for them to perform the diving work.
And with that, we've also checked that there's been no complaints with OSHA on this particular firm?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions, and I want to share with the committee members. I appreciate the work that the residents that have been working, and there's been starts and stops in this project, and as Ms. Mitchell mentioned, this will be starting the project going forward. Do you have anything that Public Works, anybody would like to add?
No, sir.
Okay.
And the other thing is it's a 50-50 between them.
Yeah, yes.
Which I think is really important too.
Right. Mr. Kessler, thank you very much. And what was your name again? Because I apologize.
My apologies. My name is KJ May. I'm the project manager for this job.
Mr. Mate, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Wolf. Do we have a recommendation?
Move the recommended action.
I'll second it. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The next item is Public Works Department, and we do have we have two speakers on these items. On the next, and I'll give the option to the speakers if they want to speak before or after the presentation. The next item is Public Works Department Subject Agreement 324-00452 with JAS Landscaping LLC for landscape maintenance services with the Community Facilities District Number 4. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with JAS Landscaping LLC in the amount not to exceed $2,721,267 for a maximum 5-year term of the agreement, with the initial agreement term ending June 30th, 2025, after which the agreement may be extended for 4 additional 1-year terms with a fully extended final term ending on June 30th, 2029 for landscape maintenance services within Community Facilities District Number 4. There is, again, due to the voters' actions, there's a Measure M. There will not be a presentation, but there is a video presentation available for the public, but that presentation cannot be shown here because of Measure M. And we do have 2 public speakers. I'd like to ask them, do they want to speak before or after there's any discussion on the matter?
I'd like to speak before. I also asked to speak on item 3.
Correct, I have that here.
I can speak after number 3 or I guess each one.
Okay, if you would like to speak before, Mr. Tellis, now's your time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Joe Tellis. I'm a resident of the Seabridge community of Oxnard. I am also currently the president of the Seabridge Homeowner Association that includes approximately 530 homes. My position allows me a unique or front row seat to the city process regarding CFD number 4. I'm actually here to comment on both items number 2 and 3, but I'll save the comments on number 3 till then. But both of those are being presented to you today that deal with issues that are affecting the community that you're going to be asked to vote on. Now, I'm not here to rant about the cost. What I am here to bring to your attention is the misrepresentation of what community input means. Within both presentations by special districts reviewing the videos that were available, small references are made to community input and discussions. Now, I'm not saying that these are lies, but in my opinion, they are misrepresentations due to the lack of context that is purposely omitted to allow you to vote yes without inquiry. Now, well, I'll say, you want me to talk about 3 specifically when that one comes up, or do you care?
I'll be very blunt with you. You get 3 minutes on each
Okay.
one, and sir, and I'll give you a little extra time because I'm taking some of your time right now. Your time is valuable, so I would save as much time as you can for 3 if you want.
Okay. The system that is used by special districts to administer the special tax assessment for maintenance and project, in my opinion, is flawed in many ways. I have discussed this with Eric Story in the past, and I told him I'd be speaking tonight, so I'm not throwing any punches unexpectedly, and I do not operate that way and will speak in front of people with the lights on. Taxation without proper representation for taxpayers is never a good thing for a governmental entity. My goal is to work with special districts and other governmental leaders to create a better and more inclusive system as to how our input is then presented to you. Seabridge will be pushing forward with new ideas that better allow the community to inspect, analyze, review, request, and hold accountable those that have been given the checkbook and decision-making in regards to our special taxes. Community input will no longer be anecdotal, but will be factually based, and people will be held accountable for misrepresenting what the community has had in discussions. So thank you for this time.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chair, Mr. Chair, may I ask, sir, what is the misrepresentation? Can you just state it, please?
So the misrepresentation in the presentation to you is what takes place in the discussion with the community. So there are things in which how it is explained to us and what we have a say in with our money is not completely accurate. There are things like this item number 2. It doesn't matter what we thought about that. We were not involved in the process. Yes, we were spoken to. We were told things. We didn't participate in how the request for bid would be done. We didn't participate in the walkthrough. We didn't participate in the selection process. But it's our money that's being used to pay for these services. So for it to be represented that in a way in which 1 or 2 lines or 3 lines say that with community input or discussion, I believe is misrepresenting the context, the totality of all of the discussions, the emails, the telephone conversations, the questions, questions like, why did it go up 43% from the last contract? I think the answers we received were not very good. I could have thought a way better answer to give on that issue. So my issue is just that, and you're going to say that there's community input and present to the council, make sure that you're putting in the proper context of what the community's input was, what they said, what their disappointments, what their objections were, if you're saying that you got community input. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, there's, listening to what you're saying, some of it I think I can understand, but some of it, for example, with the bidding process, that's just a government code, public bidding process. That would not involve residents.
Correct.
So we can parse that out, and I'm happy to talk to you further about some of your concerns, but thank you.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, Other speaker is Dean Masden. I don't know if you want to speak now or you want to speak now? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for my time, or your time, excuse me.
You have a right. It's your time.
My name is Dean Madsen. My wife Lori and I moved into the Oxnard area 5 years ago, living on the harbor since then. A little over 3 years ago, we bought a home in Mandalay on Eastbourne Bay, and we're fortunate enough to have a little green belt next to us. Shortly after we moved in, we noticed that the fence on the green belt that was up against the water was very loose. And it's a public park. We're not very far from Oxnard Beach Park, and so there are times when people actually park in that area. There are times when there's kids there in that little green belt. It's a pretty good sized green belt. There's 7 parking spots right there. And I've seen a number of times when kids have been up against that fence, testing that fence, seeing whether or not that really is as loose as it looks. We started calling in probably the fall of, or late summer, fall of 21, and never got anywhere. Never got any responses, never got any return phone calls from anybody. Really been pushing this for a long time. Now there's also a large tree in that lot that has large branches in it that fall off in the area, and those big seed pods that land on cars and things. So my wife and I have been out there doing the raking on that area for the last 2 years. Now I have to say that in the last year, since George and Lalo came on board, things have gotten really good. They've come around and spent a lot of time with us, asking us about things in the neighborhood. Most of the sprinklers were bad when we first moved in the public area next to us. We watered that area. We raked it for the first year and a half. But I'm most concerned about the safety with the tree. The tree has now been taken care of, and they've come in and done some trimming on that, so that's in good shape. And the area's gotten much better. The work that George and Lalo have done, and really, they've probably come to talk to me maybe 8 or 10 times in the last 10 months. Literally knocked on my door, or when they see me out, how's things going? My wife too, talk to us and see how are things going. So they've been very, very good and very responsive. But I think the problem is that they've not been able to push things through. Not been able to get budget, not been able to get people, not been able to get. So it's always a story of, hey, we're working on this. We understand that this fence should be fixed and repaired. And I'm just one person on one green belt. All those fences in that green belt were built in 1976. I don't know about you, but just about anything built of wood in 1976 on the ocean is pretty well shot right now. So there's work that needs to be done on a number of these things, and the safety of our citizens is a concern. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for sharing. Number one, I want to thank a member of the public that came up and complimented some workers by name. Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Your staff has heard this. Our staff has heard this. A safety issue. I mean, I saw ears go up real quick in our staff. I cannot promise you that it'll be taken care of tomorrow. This will be addressed, but I will ask you this, as both speakers that have talked. Facts and evidence matter. Facts and evidence matter. When you make a phone call, please document the stuff. There is a system in the city of Oxnard called 311 where you can do that, and there's documentation. They make the city, I have to brag about it, they'll call you back, there's a log. And bluntly, the call goes in, it's logged, somebody's responsible to get back to you. They're on the hook to get back to you. May not be the answer that's required or requested or sought after, but there is a trail and there's a train, and that's like facts and evidence matter. And I will tell the both of you, this item will, if it is approved, will go to city council. You have the opportunity again to express your views at city council. Again, thank you very much for sharing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I don't know if staff wants to address anything or say anything. Other than that, are there any other public comments? Staff, Mr. Howlett? Thank you.
Councilmember Perillo, I'm sorry, Chair
Chair
Perillo. Just to bring clarification, the residents' comments who just spoke, this is, it doesn't pertain to this agenda item. What he is referring to is the Greenbelt in Maintenance Assessment District 4, MAD 4. And we learned about this last week, and so we are working to make those corrections. But, oops, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Mandalay Bay.
Okay.
But it doesn't pertain to this particular
particular
agenda item.
Okay. Okay, City Manager, our staff will touch base with these two residents if there's any.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you again. Our,
Chair Perrello, we do not have any additional speakers virtually or in person for this item.
thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Do we have any questions?
Yeah,
or-
I just, like you said, I just want to thank the speakers for sharing their concerns, which I think is important that we hear from the public, because I think it's important. And my understanding is JES was determined to be the lowest responsible bidder for this item, Mr. Story, so is that correct? There was several other bidders, correct?
Good evening, Eric Story, Special District Manager. Yes, sir, correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And thank you again to the speakers for being here tonight.
Again, thank you to the speakers for coming. It can be very lonely sitting in the audience, but believe me, you're speaking for a lot of other people that don't take the time to get off the couch and do this. They may be watching right now. If they are, they have an opportunity to call in and they can talk to us, but they will see it later on. I have full faith that our staff will talk to you and get your concerns. And I appreciate the fact that we've had multiple people bid for the contract. We're going with the lowest responsible bidder to get the biggest bang for the buck and the public spending on this item. And those are my only comments. Do we have a?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay. Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, on item 3, we do have Speaker, Mr. Tellis is up on this one also, but again, before or after, it's your choice. So item 3, Public Works Project 324-00427 for Garcia Landscape and Maintenance Incorporated for Seabridge Park Bench Installation Project specifications number SD24-82. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Garcia Landscaping and Maintenance Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $12,650 for the installation of park benches at Community Facilities District Number 4. Again, the voters approved Measure M, so there cannot be a presentation on this project in council. It's online. Madam Clerk, do we have any other speakers besides the one individual who turned in a card?
Only Mr. Joe Tellis here in person.
Okay. Would you like to speak before or after we? Okay, please, your time.
Thank you. And let me make it perfectly clear that I do not have an issue with the any city workers. I think they're trying to do the best they can. Unfortunately, in dealing with this issue, this is who has to handle it. And my complaint is with what I believe is a flawed system that is utilized to administer the CFD taxes. I don't blame them for it. We are all stuck in this system that I do not believe is working to the best of its ability. That is my biggest concern. So in regards to item 3, for example, I would hope that the council would ask, why are we having to approve $12,000 for this item? Because in the presentation, it's nice, it looks good. I've done PowerPoints like that. Let me point out that I was in a governmental job for 30 plus years. I get it, I know how it works. But again, my issue is with community input and how that is represented to the council in terms of why you would vote yes or no on something. That is my biggest concern on this. So I know why it happened that it needs 12,000. I know Eric Story knows why it happened. And my problem is that the reason that it happened was that it could have been avoided in regards to the park benches with better management, processing, inspection systems, and approval procedures. Now, I'm not going to go into explaining it all because that's not my job to do. But keep in mind that our CFD taxes in the community already paid for the benches. Now there needs to be more money spent for installation, and my feeling is, again, the process itself, it causes things like this to happen, which then causes more money to be spent. I don't think it's, again, individuals' faults. I believe that it has to do with the system as being utilized from the money being there, through the process, through the vendor actually completing the work. And the problem is that also these benches should have been replaced years ago. The only reason they're getting replaced, honestly, is because in September of 2023, I asked for them to be replaced. I walked them, I marked every single one, and made it as easy as possible for these benches. But unfortunately, they didn't come the exact same size and with the exact same features that the other ones had. So now it needs more money. So that is my issue again, is that the process does not work fairly for the community. We do not hold the checkbook, yet we are told we do. We are told that we can say yes or no to things. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. And where our community lies is the CFD is paying for access for the public to come and utilize areas in which we're paying for people that do not live in our area, which I don't have any issue with that, but that is the reality of it. So the issue is the process in which community input is represented to mean that we're good with it. We were fine with that. We understand it. We're okay. That is what my concern is moving forward on this issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you. No other comments, Madam Clerk.
Chair Perrella, we do not have any additional speakers. Thank you.
Okay. I'll start this one off. I'm very grateful that you did mention that there's a possibility the people that use these facilities don't live there, but you don't have a problem with that. That is one of the issues that happens throughout the city of Oxnard. I live in a specific neighborhood called South Bank. And I told the staff right now when I've seen these pictures, we have imbeciles. There's a specific definition of that. They're young, they're full of whatever, and they think it's cool to break these things. We had one knucklehead, I'm using those words, he thought it was cool to steal the stainless steel bolts. So they would take them apart and the public was left with a certain thing. When certain pedestals rot off, whether they're private or public, if they're in a public park and somebody gets hurt, it's not just your residents that could get hurt, it's anybody that could get hurt. And if there's a lawsuit, it includes almost 250,000 people living in the city of Oxnard. They got to pay the bill. So some things have to be taken care of. It sounds like, and I have no authority to challenge you, it sounds like you brought things to the attention of the staff or the city. Again, if people don't know how to use 311, they need to document this stuff so that we can find out where there's a weak link. And the issue of bringing the information to the city, some departments and some landscape districts and CFDs have limited funds. So there's not the funds to fix things. When it gets to a safety issue, there's been this evening a fence mentioned, the pedestals rotting off, somebody could fall. They get addressed, but there's a threshold level. I'm not explaining it as well as I have it in my head here. I do appreciate that you can understand that there is some method that things will be taken care of. I don't know if it's a correct word we use in the city, but there's a reserve fund for taking care of things when they have life expectancies. We had an issue at the beginning of the meeting about seawalls. We have this here particular item is benches. Everything has a life expectancy, myself included. And when it comes to the end of a life expectancy, they'll plant me maybe, but something, they may have to get a new one, whether it's a car, a bench, a seawall, something else, they have to get something. And unless there's money set aside to do that on a periodic, regular basis that was planned for, there's going to be hiccups in the system. Something's going to have to be done. I can tell you, I'm not bragging about this. I got involved in my neighborhood in 1998. There were a lot of things that happened. I got involved in this council when I was elected in June of 13. The things that have come to light from past histories were because of deferred maintenance. But when the auditors went through our city, it wasn't deferred maintenance. It was called extreme deferred maintenance. We have done a tremendous job since the new management of the city has come in 2018 to catch up. We're not where we want to be. I'm not trying to make an excuse for myself or the city. I very seriously appreciate you bringing the items to our attention, and I appreciate you sharing that information. As a former chairman of a neighborhood council, you mentioned you're the chair of the Seabridge area. It's a responsibility in your residents when it comes time for them to back you up. I would have hoped some of them would be here backing you up because it gets lonely at the front, the point of a spear. So I give you all the credit in the world for taking the position. And staff, do you want to have anything to address?
Yeah, Mr. Perrello, maybe at the pleasure of the committee, maybe Mr. Story or Mr. Hallett can provide some details about the conversations they previously had with the speaker and the community out there about the benches. I think that will provide some context to some of the discussion here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Chair, Mr. Mayor, members of the committee. Eric Story, your Special Districts Manager. So this item is part of an annual process by which we identify deferred, or as you mentioned, Chair, extremely deferred maintenance items. In the budget development process for this current fiscal year, these benches were not identified as needing replacement and repair. As the speaker mentioned, in September, there was discussions between the community, excuse me, and the special districts team regarding replacing of these. So that is the reason why it came about, as well as why we took action once we were notified. Now, thankfully, there was funding available in professional services in CFD for Seabridge in order to address these items. But I do want to point out in the staff report, the resident HOA president brought to your attention that the process and the reason we have to bring a $12,650 item to council is because the city's process. We informally bid this item, and although it is under the city manager's signature authority as well as the public works director's authority, the lowest bidder was Garcia's, who currently has agreements with the city over $200,000, and that is the reason why we have to bring that to the committee and ultimately council, and that is identified in the financial impact section of the report. In terms of overall community input, guidance, discussion, my staff and I, we do meet with our communities monthly, sometimes multiple times per month, and I can address that, or I can share that on January 12th, we had a meeting with the community. I also had a nearly 3-hour meeting with Mr. Tellez on January 12th, regarding overall city operations as well as special districts items. Then again on February 8th and March 14th. So there is a continual discussion regarding WAN's needs of funding as well as the ability to deliver with our communities, and that process will continue.
Thank you. I could like to ask a question. You've mentioned the dates when you have meetings. Does Mr. Tellez bring other parties, or is it just a one-on-one meeting? Or are they neighborhood council meetings? How does that work?
Thank you, Chair. So we have 2 standing meetings. One is can I use this term? We have a meeting where things don't grow. So these are covering things like sidewalks, arbors, gazebos, benches. We also have a things that grow meeting by which we talk about the landscaping, trees, and otherwise. And yes, at any of these meetings, it'll be my project manager and and additional staff as well as me, plus the residents, the board, committee members from the communities.
Okay. And the only reason I asked that, Mr. Tellez, I want to be clear. I just, my experience, my personal experience, sometimes, I shouldn't have started, I should move. Sometimes one person in a neighborhood will try to call the shots for an entire neighborhood without getting the backing up of the residents to make sure that everybody's on the same page. That's why I asked those questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So Mr. Story, the reason the $12,000 came to us was because of the $200,000 contract that Garcia has now. So if it was been
I'm sorry.
If it had been a single item like $12,000 and nothing else, the city manager or the director could have signed that off. Is that correct?
Mayor Zaragoza, I'll take that one. Assistant City Attorney El McCarran. Our Chapter 4 of the Oxnard City Code, which
Can you speak up, please?
Yep, I'm sorry, which details how we run our purchases, has a unique feature where it's a per vendor, per fiscal year policy. So anything over the $200,000 limit or which is above the city manager's authority, even if it's $1 over, must come to council because it's the same vendor and it's over their fiscal limit, which is $200,000.
So it's a protocol because then it comes to the city council.
Correct.
That makes a lot of sense as opposed to, and I agree with, with the chair, white $12,000, but we're adding that to the existing contract, correct?
It's not
No.
the existing contract, it's a separate contract, but since it's with the
Oh,
same
the
vendor,
dollar
it's
amount.
an aggregate amount, yeah.
Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, I don't get the sense that the $12,000 per se is the complaint here. I get the sense that there's frustration that sounds like deferred maintenance-wise, in prior years, if the benches had been maintained, that they may not have needed to be replaced. I think I heard that gist.
But I think you also mentioned about why $12,000, why have we come in for $12,000, I think.
Well, no, I think the complaint, again, was
a concern.
was how we're communicating that to the council. So what I'm understanding, and I'm gonna need to talk to Mr. Tellis more to get through this, is the dissatisfaction with the process. I'm not sure if that's simply a budgeting process, a getting the neighborhood, the HOA feedback process. I did hear complaints about just basically timely maintenance over the years. But there are also CFD regulations that we have to follow. So I'm just gonna have to follow up with him to really understand. But I don't think there's a concern about $12,000 being here per se. No, sorry. But I'm gonna talk to you right after.
And the reason I mentioned is because I heard that, that initially. Thank you, anyway.
If I'd like to make a comment. One of the issues about our current management, we could have a threshold much higher than we have. Because of the history, the threshold is low, the $200,000 threshold, so that people can know what's going on, so we don't have surprises. I like some surprises, but the kind that have to do with this kind of, I don't like those kinds of surprises. That's why we have a word that is used and abused, transparency. That's why there's transparency on this stuff. And I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Do you have any comments? Okay. And I will tell you that I have been, and the reason I asked about the number of people that have these meetings, Mr. Story, is I've been to meetings where, specifically one that I recall was at River Park, and there were maybe 2 or 3 people, and that's a huge development. And those are the only ones that would show up and ask questions, and they would get an answer. And as I recall, they were never satisfied with the answer, and they'd get it 7 different ways. The answer was the same, and they were never satisfied. And so I always thought to myself, where's the leadership of that neighborhood? And things have changed in that neighborhood, but that's why I asked the question. No disrespect to the Seabridge area or the chair, the gentleman that's asking the questions. Thank you. Any recommendations?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it. Please vote.
Chair Perrello, your vote, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Too much talking, I pushed the wrong button. My apologies.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Sorry, Mayor. Okay, next one. Next item is number 4, and this is the subject, Public Project Agreement 324-00383 with Best Contracting Services Incorporated for on-call roofing, maintenance, and minor repair services project. Specifications PW 2395. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend the City Council authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Best Contracting Incorporated for a total amount not to exceed $190,000 for a maximum 2-year term for on-call roofing maintenance and minor repair services. Again, there was a Measure M presentation, and so there's not going to be a presentation here. And Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers on this item?
Chair Perrello, we do not have any speakers in person or virtually for this item.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the committee?
So we're looking, Mr. Chair, Steve, we're looking for leaks in the roof or items that need to be repaired ASAP. Is that what it's for?
Chair Perrello and committee members, Mayor Zaragoza, you are correct. This is a contract for on-call minor repair services. So this is just repair any isolated leaks or damages that is witnessed during the inspections of the roofing. That's why it's in this amount. It doesn't fall into a capital improvement project, which would be a full renovation of a roof. So this is minor repairs to assist staff on an on-call basis.
Great, that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And if I understand this right, Mr. Help, this is so that we don't have something that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger to prevent it becoming extreme deferred maintenance.
That's right.
You are correct, Chair Perrello.
Thank you. Yeah,
And this is just before us because this vendor has two agreements with the city, correct?
Again, committee members, as the city attorney mentioned, per Chapter 4 of our city code for our purchasing policy is any purchases up to $200,000 falls under the city manager's authority. Anything that falls over $200,000 in a given year with a single vendor requires city council approval. Currently, there is an agreement that was awarded in July of 2022 that will expire in July of 2024. However, we've already reached the not to exceed limit for that contract. Therefore, it necessitated the need for us to rebid this so we can continue providing on-call roofing services. And therefore, with the current amount that we've already utilized the contractor for, and then the newly awarded contract, it puts us over the $200,000, so therefore requires city council approval.
And we're going to need that. We're going to get some more rain too. Move approval.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Next item on the agenda, public project number 324-00262 with Central Coast Engineering for on-call plumbing, maintenance, and minor repair services. Specifications number PW23-105. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Central Coast Engineering for a total amount not to exceed $196,000 for a 1-year term for on-call plumbing, maintenance, and minor repair services. Again, this is a Measure M item. There's a video presentation, but we're not allowed to show it here. We can ask questions, and the staff can ask, the public can chime in, ask questions. Madam Clerk, are there any public speakers on this item?
Chair Perrello, we do not have any speakers in person or virtually for this item.
Okay. Do committee members have
I
questions?
agree with saying, it's uncalled, and believe it, things happen in threes. Over at my house, I got to call the plumber 2-3 times already, so that uncalled plumber is extremely important. So I think it's important. Steve, can you give additional information on?
Correct. Chair Perrello, Mayor, committee members. This is similar to the last item that we discussed. Central Coast Engineering was the previous contractor, and so with this new contract, once again, it puts us over the $200,000 limit for a single vendor in a given year. What's unique about this one is when we put it out to bid, only one vendor provided a proposal for this, and it was Central Coast Engineering.
Right.
They've been providing the service in the past. They met all the specifications. Purchasing reviewed this, and because it is a single vendor, we had to go into a negotiated single source contract, or an NSS. So that's the only thing that's different with this, but it falls within the pricing and the requirements for this contract.
And the single source is a very important item. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
No comments.
Mr. Howlett, thank you for explaining that. Just for the public, there were a request for proposals was put out, advertised. Only one party responded. They were found to be qualified. They get it, and that's why it's called a single source, not because we're denying people the opportunity to bid.
That is correct.
And we need this. I mean, just as the mayor said, they're expecting, I'm hearing on the radio, expecting 2 inches of rain in
3
Oxnard
inches.
this weekend. You can let it go, a leak, and do it, some other time. But
Major.
the expense is just built up. These are very needed to protect the public's property, not just private parties, the public's property. So if there's no other comments or no public comments, I'll move this recommended action.
Second.
Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much. Do we have anything that council members would like to, committee members would like to have in future agendas?
None for me, sir.
Nope. Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned, and I apologize for the herky-jerky method of the chair.